Hi everyone. My name is Andy and this is my project, Who Stays Calm on Mars? Emotion Regulation and Stress in Simulated Mars Missions, a multi-level approach. Just for context, I'm a statistics and data science major at UCF. So to begin, I'm going to tell you a few facts about long-duration space missions. So when we eventually get astronauts to go to Mars, they will experience physical isolation, lack of privacy, lack of space, ironically, because they're in a very confined space inside the space shuttles. Limited contact with loved ones because due to the long distances, they will experience communication delays. And a little bit redundant, but they will be exposed to these very extreme conditions for a very long period of time. All of these things can possibly lead to social conflict, clique formation, ostracism, inefficient information transfer, all things that can threaten mission success. So now that leads us to the question, who's going to Mars? Because now that we understand all of these things that astronauts will eventually be dealing with, we need to make sure that the team that goes to Mars is a crew that is emotionally stable, less prone to stress, effective at communicating, and also good at stress management. But how can we study psychology in a space travel context so we can make sure that we select the right candidates for these missions? That's where analog missions come in. Analog missions are simulated space missions in specialized facilities. For the context of this project, I'm going to be focusing especially in the Mars Desert Research Station, MDRS, which is located in Utah. And crews usually spend about 2 weeks at the station, with some exceptions that spend 4 weeks. And they act as if they're real astronauts in Mars. So you can see from the picture that they have what looks like kind of a spacesuit that they have to wear when they go outside. So the research questions that I'm trying to ask with data from analog missions is, can we predict stress level based on emotional regulation and expressivity to be able to understand stress during mission? So we gathered data from 17 MDRS crews with a total of 56 participants. So we had 499 days of data in total. So we had 2 baseline pre-mission predictors. So these were predictors that we gathered from each participant before they went on the mission. The first one was the Berkeley Expressivity Questionnaire, which measures how much you express your emotions. And the second one was the Difficulty and Emotional Regulation Scale, which measures how difficult it is for someone to regulate their emotions. And then we had our outcome variable, which was measured each day of the mission, which was stress, self-reported daily on a score from 0 to 100. So as you can probably tell, our 2 pre-mission variables are gathered once per participant, and our outcome variable, stress, is gathered once per day. And when you look at it this way, and you see the hierarchical nature of the data, you will notice that it has 2 different levels, which is the reason why we decided to pick a multi-level model. This is the model that we used for this specific project, and I'm going to brush through this slide specifically, but if you do have any questions about the model, feel free to ask at the end of the presentation. So for our results, for the difficulty and emotional regulation scale, we didn't really see a statistically significant relationship there, even though there's a very small positive association with stress. For the Berkeley Emotional Expressivity, also we didn't really see a statistically significant relationship, even though the positive effects was much larger compared to the Difficulty and Emotional Regulation Scale. We did notice though, as you can see in that graph where we have divided, each line represents a quarter of scores. So the 2 quarters that have the 2 highest ranges of scores have the most fluctuation, which is an interesting trend that might be worthwhile looking into in the future. So for future directions, we hope to continue this research with a larger sample size to be able to significantly detect all of those possible interactions between variables. We would also like to look at possible covariates like gender and education level to understand how stress affects all of these different aspects of ourselves, as well as include physiological data like EEG and heart rate to be able to understand not just how stress affects the mind, but also the body. Which leads us to our question from before, who is going to Mars? So once we continue this research and understand the different aspects of mission during stress, we will make sure that who does go to Mars has the safest and most successful mission possible. So my question to you now is, do you think you can go to Mars? These are the amazing people that I would like to thank. And do we have any questions? Yes, Nicole.
Really good presentation, thank you so much. One of the dialogues that really goes on when it comes to astronaut selection is how we can be equitable and actually try to not exclude people. Do you have any commentary that maybe having these non-statistically significant results means good things for us?
Yeah, actually. So the reason why I'm pretty sure we had non-statistically significant results is because of the sample size. But once we continue to gather data from these types of missions, we will definitely be able to have larger data sets that will allow us to look at all of those possible relationships with stress in a significant way. And the cool thing about it is that once we understand how stress looks like during the mission, we will be able to determine whether we have to select people who are very good with stress, or if pre-mission training of, for example, emotional regulation will be good enough to have people ready to be in that kind of environment.
Thank you. I really like that comment on training as well. My follow-up question is then, what other factors do you think you would want to include in your ideal study to assess for that stress level? To measure, how would you measure people's stress score using like a variety of different factors?
That's a good question. Ideally, I would really, really love to be able to include physiological data, because I think that looking at that mind-body connection is super important. So being able to look at things like cortisol levels and like different hormonal levels, if possible, I think would be super helpful to really understand exactly how stress affects every single individual during a mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. I think another question I had was, a lot of these are related to the individual characteristics of the astronauts. To what extent do you think that relationships among the particular people in the mission, have an effect on the amount of stress that each individual has and like the degree of mission success that can entail?
Oh yeah, that's actually a really big factor, and that's something that I actually am lucky enough to work on back home, because my lab at UCF, they specialize in team cognition. So they understand that team cognition and team bonding is extremely, extremely important. So for this project specifically, it's a little bit separate from team cognition. We're just trying to understand how stress can affect the individual, because if we're able to reduce or control that stress, we can make sure that team cognition and team bonding is something that is very present and more, I guess, easily navigated during the mission.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.